Bitcoin is absolutely ripping to new all-time highs. The 120s got blown out of the water. We're going to be discussing crypto, crypto week, TradFi, Asia, and much more today on Money Never Sleeps. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. As we get going, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember, nothing that Kevin or I say is financial advice, so please do your own research for making any buys or sells. Just realized I had that unicorn over my shoulder. That's fun. Kev, happy Monday. We had a big rally in the crypto market on Sunday night. We saw Bitcoin touch all the way up to 123. Wick up there. Now it's chilling just below 120,000. Fartcoin on a nice run. We've seen some alts catch bids. So really exciting time. It is crypto week here in the US. A lot anticipated on legislation there. We have bond yields in Japan to talk about. Earnings season is kicking off. We have CPI data tomorrow. It is a massive week in the markets, like absolutely huge. Ton going on, a lot of moving parts, expecting volatility. How are you feeling at the beginning of what is set up to be a really fun one?
I'm doing great. I think there's a lot of euphoria out there, which I'm okay with because obviously I have positions in that direction, but it's getting a little dicey in my opinion. Seeing some of the sentiment, people thinking that obviously Bitcoin can't go down. We have some stuff we can talk about Bitcoin and DXY divergence going on there. And, we're still in the summer trading months, right? Low volatility and allows for a lot of these pumps to the upside. So we'll be able to see too, especially after this month, I think, where the VIX starts to kind of bottom out. And it's going to be really interesting given that we have a lot of not just data this week, but the next 2 weeks, we have some central bank stuff going on, both in the US and in Japan, that I think are going to implicate kind of where we're heading going into the end of the year. So the CPI data is definitely going to be really telling or important for what I think the Fed will probably do in the July meeting, maybe in the September meeting as well. But we are packed with stuff right now. This is actually a fun time in the summer, given how kind of slow the news has been lately.
Yeah, CPI tomorrow morning. The expectation is for a 0.3% increase month over month and a 3% year over year. Meanwhile, you have Trump and everyone who, really just started paying attention to inflation data saying, oh, it's time to cut rates. If we get an increase from the previous month, from 2.8 to 3.0, there's no way the Fed is going to cut rates. Now, if we see it come in flat, like if it beats expectation, and let's say we get even flat from last month, let's say 2.8% year over year, 0.1% month over month, then I think the market is going to respond favorably. But, God forbid we get a hot print tomorrow and these gains from the last few days are going to be coming back down. So I think there is risk factor number one, and I haven't seen, I still think a lot of people are very hesitant when it comes to Bitcoin. Yes, we've seen a huge move up, but it's not retail focused. I don't think retail has the money to do it. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But, I think something else that could really drop a turd in the punch bowl is the excitement around this crypto week. If none of this stuff goes through and these bills don't pass because Democrats are going to fight back against them, because part of it is that, Trump has positioned himself financially to benefit greatly from all of this. That's also going to throw a wrench into crypto's plans this week too. So I think, being cautiously optimistic is a good way to play this right now. I don't think there's, I'm not expecting us to hit 150K Bitcoin this week. Maybe we get up to 125, but man, it does seem like a lot has been priced into the upside.
Yeah, and it's hold on 1 second. Excuse me, I should have muted. Looking at Bitcoin's price and obviously everything in the equity markets, we've priced in everything but the actual moment we get the rate cuts, right? We're expecting them. We continue to price them in, and even when we don't necessarily get them when we expect, we price in. Oh, they're still coming. So we're getting this type of these pushes up in the market. Again, Bitcoin extremely low volume compared to how the prices move. There's a massive divergence there. Again, DXY comes into play with that. Same thing with gold. But I would be very cautious here because even if we don't get, say, this allows for a pullback, the crypto week, something doesn't go right, you still got the biggest orange swan out there, which is Michael Saylor. I will, let's put it this way: FTX, CZ getting arrested, or I guess going to jail, and then Michael Saylor. This would be the biggest one. Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy absolutely just eating shit. I still think that no matter what, when they have no convertible debt that they can issue, and we see that the past 4 quarters the company's actually lost money, you're going to see a massive sell-off. I don't know when that is, right? We keep saying September because that's when a lot of the 5-year loans come due. But this is just kind of lurking out there as Bitcoin's from all-time highs. And it kind of scares me because if we think about October 2021 into what happened the following year, it pretty much dropped very fast from all-time highs, right? Bitcoin was at like 66 or 64,000 or something like that. Next thing you know, like 2 months later, it was like 48, and might be that way coming soon. So I don't know. I think crypto, obviously, mass euphoria. I think there's gonna be a lot of rotation capital, but that is just something that is still lurking in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there. Let's go to Japan as well. I mean, we saw bond yields over there hit, multi-decade highs. I know there's still, we didn't even mention tariffs. Like Trump out here once again, you know, sounding the tariff alarm for the EU, for, major parts of Asia. Like it just is, and the market at this point is kind of calling his bluff, right? Like
Exactly. Yep.
he issued all this on the weekend, and the markets are just totally shrugging it off. Like, nah, we've seen you do this before. We are gonna push up anyways because we know that there's gonna be a resolution here, and you're gonna back down because that's gonna help. I don't think Trump is, you know, unaware that it's gonna impact inflation, right? Like he knows this. And as much as he and other, Republicans want to push out Jerome Powell, he's not wrong for keeping interest rates like where they are with all the uncertainty around tariffs,
Right.
right? Like we know what's going to happen to inflation if these tariffs go through. So it's pretty cut and dry. Like if he pulls back on the tariff threats which the market thinks he will, then we're going to be able to see interest rate cuts sooner. If he stands his ground here, then we're going to be kind of screwed. So like everything going on internationally with all these trade battles and him, now getting into it with Russia, say that they need to have a ceasefire, otherwise he's going to increase the tariffs even more over there. All of this stuff is just, it's getting to be a bit much.
It really is. It's fucking reality TV at this point. And mind you, there's tons of other scandals or controversy going on in the administration at the same time. Outside of that, looking at the tariffs, I just want to pull up a few charts. Let's look at what's going on with tariffs, the letters that have been sent out, and what the projected rates are going to be. So we can see that we got the April 2nd rates that he taco traded to push back to the July, whatever it was, 13th date. And then we have the new ones in this dark green color. Let's look at some of where they are now. Vietnam obviously was a massive one because that's a huge, obviously we import a ton of goods from Vietnam. So crushing it a little bit. So obviously they caved in. Okay, sure, whatever. But you look at some of these other ones, they're very heavy in Asia. Sri Lanka, Philippines, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, Japan, 25%. It's higher than what it was in April 7th. You look at Laos, 40%, which is almost the same as Vietnam in terms of production. Not as big, but obviously it's very close regionally. And then you look at, where's the other one? South Korea, 25%, and Thailand, 36%. Thailand actually being really interesting because we did that show, I think it was last week, where we talked about, the Asian financial crisis in the summer of 1997. Happened when Thailand's dollar got devalued against the US dollar, and then it kind of spread into Korea, and it spread into all the other, nations in that region. We're kind of repeating that. I think this is going to cause huge implications for Forex, and I think there's a good chance that we could see the DXY rally extremely hard because a lot of the Asian currencies just get weaker and weaker and weaker. Interesting what happens with the yen. I think the yen is going to be one that is going to be taking a big hit at some point. I keep saying August because I think that with these tariffs coming out August 1st, we don't get any deals beyond that. We just kind of get these new rates. you're going to see a lot of things have to change going into Q3 and the Q3 into Q4, and that I think forex is going to really complicate a lot of these trades and these derivatives that are going in the equity markets itself, right? Continue to say the Bank of Japan is in a very, very dangerous place. I'm going to share another tweet from Bar Chart. Saw this last night. Uh, yeah, this is Japan stocks versus government bonds price relative. It's pretty much at all-time highs. The only time before that was December of 1989. And if you watch our show often, I always reference 1990 in Japan, where April, I think it dropped like 36% that month. And it's very possible. We saw what happened in August of last year in Japan, right? In one day, it dropped like 11%, 12% in the equity market for the Nikkei. So these fast moves in the Asian markets are very possible. And I think Japan right now is in a worse place than the United States, just given inflation continues to go up. Bank of Japan's kind of not being hawkish. If they decide to be hawkish, well, then absolutely everything's going to go, up in flames pretty quick. So these tariffs, 25% still in Japan, very complicated stuff. But again, I think Trump's focus hitting Asia kind of tells me that August is not going to be a good month out there. It can cause a lot of problems. It really can. I'm actually thinking that Asia is going to go first before any other region if we are expecting, say, a major recession. I think that these tariffs are going to cause a lot more damage over there to start with, and then from there, it's probably going to bleed into maybe the EU, maybe into the US. How fast? Who knows? It depends on how bad it really is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at our comment here from Michael Anthony about Pfizer. I know it's a 43-cent dividend. Looking at the chart right now, but anything else on Japan? We can mention this comment here in a second. But anything else on Japan that you think is worth noting?
It's just you got to wait for that July 30th date. That's when they're going to have their BOJ meeting. I think once you get into August, you might see some of those tariffs and also some of the, whether it's hawkishness or dovishness of the BOJ come into play, and markets will probably readjust accordingly, especially starting into a new month. So it's going to be very interesting. I think right now you might get rumblings. I guess that the yields are showing that, but you're not going to get necessarily, I think, a snap or a break until we get some clarity on the central bank fronts.
All right, let's look at the markets here in the States. We have fairly muted gains across the board today. Dow up, 0.14%, S&P in that ballpark, Nasdaq up a little bit more. But we also have the VIX trading higher and the dollar up slightly. So it's no one's really sure what they want to do or where things are going to go right here. Pretty mixed across the board in equities. Looks like the kind of like almost like a 50-50 in the magnificent 7 or 8 or however many it is now, between being up a little bit and down a little bit on the day. We have some big earnings next week with Netflix, JP Morgan, but what do you think is in store for equities? I know all eyes are on crypto right now, but worth bringing up the stock market as well.
Absolutely. I think a huge thing we have to do is obviously look to the DXY. It's going to be very important. It's important what's going on with gold, with Bitcoin and crypto, and obviously equities. It's at a very low level right now. It's at some of the lowest in the past 6 months. It's not the lowest, but it's still hovering above that key level at 96,785. It's very possible that we bounce, we have one more drop in the bucket on this. You can see that the weekly is about to get to death cross. We could probably play that next week. But you're still holding support on this. I think you could go back to it and get a double bottom on there. But that causes a lot of things to be problematic, right? Weaker dollar means Bitcoin's going to go up, allows equities to go up a little bit more, also allows, gold to go up as well. My bad. And you're probably going to see a lot of the yields continue to rise if that's the case. So seeing where the dollar is right now, I think there's more upside than there is downside. I think we both can agree on that. I think that once these tariffs kind of come into play, and you can kind of even look at what happened. Where were we in April, March? The crash in March was very short lived, right? It still came down. This is again inflationary issues that caused, I think, the dollar to come down. But I think that there's a lot of debt coming due into September, October, November. Again, that's the 5 years from the COVID where rates were essentially zero to borrow money. And if we expect the dollar to break out, we can expect the equity markets to pull back. So right now we're in this it's very similar to the VIX as well. This summer crush for the dollar, summer crush for volatility, where things are still very kind of just sideways trading, right? I mean, I know the VIX is up 5% today, and it was up a lot higher, but you're not really going anywhere. You're just kind of hanging out in these areas. You're creating gaps, you're filling them back and forth, back and forth. At some point, maybe it's in August, maybe it's at the end of July, you are going to find a bottom for volatility. And the key thing is you're going to look for this chart, where is it? Volatility futures. And you're going to see, these massive spikes, and it's probably going to start pushing up above the 50 or the 200 moving average. And if you look on the weekly, I would assume that, yeah, see, these things are about to get, well, they did get a golden cross and looks like death cross. This is going to at some point turn over. So obviously, if you look at the VIX futures, you'll probably see candles that are hinting at a push to the upside in overall volatility. That's what I expect, honestly. But you can see that the MACD will probably turn over green, and you'll probably see the stochastic RSI. Everything here is primed for major volatility, just so everyone knows. And you can see that this is how the VIX futures have been charting. They've been hugging this trend line nonstop. Volumes are low right now. It's summer. But once this kind of picks up, I think that there are going to be massive plays, and it kind of hints that, okay, volatility and the DXY are probably going to pick up. It's a good chance that a lot of other things kind of fall back. We're seeing across the board, that's the futures, my bad. Flat in the S&P, right, on the weekly, just very sideways. Stochastic RSI at 199. That's not screaming problems. Same thing over here on the weekly for the NASDAQ. And you look at the Dow Jones, same thing, guys. And where are we heading into? Quarterly OPEX. Again, the problem isn't now. It's very soon, but it's not now. Looking at this, I imagine that we're going to continue to stay this way. I mean, even the Dow just getting this rejection on the weekly here, that's not necessarily a good sign. And you can see that this momentum on the MACDs down here is even slowing down. Once everything starts to roll over, I would be very concerned in the equity market. I mean, everything's just kind of lining up. The question is, does it happen in September, October, November? Can't be precise. I would assume it'd be after the second half of September, but there's a good chance that this plays out a little bit longer. It really does depend on how much money and how much liquidity is out there, depending on other global markets as well, Asia, Europe, what their central banks do as well. But we're in this very weird coasting period right now in the markets, and crypto, I think, is the only one that's showing any signs of life. At least Bitcoin is, right?
On that note, let's go to Bitcoin. We'll look at Bitcoin dominance as well.
Yeah.
We can hit on a few alts, and then we will wrap it up for the day because we got plenty going on throughout the week, and today's kind of the lightest day we have.
Absolutely. Bitcoin just at 120. They're a little bit under it right now. So obviously this level of resistance that I was looking at, this historical one, it broke through it. It was also trading in a bull flag here. I said that there's a good chance we could break above it. It's gone a little bit higher than I expect. Again, the DXY being so weak means that people are probably hedging with Bitcoin, which also in itself is a very dangerous trade too. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Bitcoin is going to be recession proof, right? That might be a dangerous mindset. I don't know if it is. No one really knows if it is or not. But if a lot of people are just like, oh, I don't want to be holding money or stocks, let me just throw everything into Bitcoin, you could be potentially creating exit liquidity for other institutions or other people at some point. Is that true? Who knows? We really don't know. I have no Bitcoin position. I also don't care what really happens. I think my only BTC exposure is through GameStop. So I'm not upset by this going up here, but at the same time, I'm very cautious because I'm seeing lots of euphoria on the timeline. You're in uncharted territories, right? It's very possible that you could push up a little bit higher, but you could also get a really mean wick that just comes straight down, and then you're back underneath this level of resistance under 105, right? Stochastic RSI on the weekly is at 96 and 87.5. You can see that the MACD over here, really strange volume, up, down, up, down. If it starts to roll over, there's probably going to be some type of pullback. I don't know how big it'll be. You can look at the 50 moving average on the weekly for some type of, baseline support. You can also look up here around 95 to like 105, I would say. Outside of that, though, looking at the monthly for Bitcoin as well, You could argue, and I think this is what a lot of people are arguing, that there is plenty of room to the upside on the monthly stochastic RSI. Given this candle that we got here, and if we close somewhere around there by end of August, you might be overbought on all time frames. It's very interesting right now. But could it push up a lot higher? It could, kind of, right? I mean, I hate to say that, like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but there could be another push a little bit higher if there is enough liquidity out there, and say institutions. I don't think institutions think this is recession proof. I think a lot of people are just trying to say that Bitcoin is like gold and it's going to beat everything. But I think that this is very much, you're going to see some type of major retracement at some point. I just don't know where it's going to land, right? Volume is dropping as the price been pushing up, and this has been going on for a long time. This is on the monthly. If we look at the daily, zoom out a little bit. All right, zoom out a lot a bit, actually. That's not even a good chart. Let's go to the weekly. I didn't like how that one came out. I think it's the weekly one. Yeah, weekly, here it is. Weekly, pushing up as volumes have been dropping. I got to zoom in for y'all to see it. Coming down, it's price pushing up. I don't know. Just there's fishy rumblings, if that's even a saying. Fishy rumblings.
I think there's room for it to push up, especially with where Bitcoin dominance is at now. Like, it's taken a pullback. It's very oversold. It has been since the beginning, at the end of June. So I think we got space for one more push up to like 125 before I think we see a decent size retracement. And then I think we are going to see a little bit of I don't know how big of an alt season it is. I mean, if we want to look at some of these other coins, like XRP pushed up over $3 for a bit. We saw ETH get back over 3K. Solana went as high as 168. So there was a nice little move on some alts, and we'll talk about memes as well with Fartcoin in here in a bit. But I don't know. That's kind of what I'm anticipating, is a move to like 125, get Bitcoin dominance, one more leg up before we see, because this straight line up, where is the money coming from? Unless like we do get a Fed rate cut soon and all of this sideline capital. But is all this sideline capital going to want to rotate into Bitcoin with how much it's gone up in such a short period of time? Like, do people really envision, at least over the rest of this year, the possibility for a decent return on Bitcoin? Like, I don't know.
Neither do I. We should have the answers, but it's honestly it's a game of probabilities at this point, right? You really have to look at, okay, where's this money coming from, and then how much debt is there compared to how much money is expendable, or how much cash they have on hand that they can expend into some of these markets. And like you said, Bitcoin's going up a shit ton. I'm seeing people projecting that Bitcoin's going to 180, 200K. Big pushes. I'm not saying here. I think this might be the best thing that we could potentially tell everybody. Again, not financial advice. I would never short Bitcoin here in the crazy type of alt mania that this is, right? I'm seeing liquidations left and right. Fucking what's the guy's name? Steve Wynn or whatever, or
James Wynn.
James Wynn.
Was it James Wynn? I think it was James Wynn.
His last name is Wynn, but he's lost.
Absolute counter trade. Like, that guy has been a disaster.
And it's,
listen, if you're new to watching our show, some of the advice we give might not be the best, right? Because we've been doing the show for a couple of years, and we were talking about buying Bitcoin years ago, like when it was at much lower levels. Like, I'm not selling my holdings right now. I've set up a position I'm happy with. I have an average cost basis of like 38K. So I'm really content with just sitting here and watching it all play out. I don't know if I have the best advice for anyone who is just now deploying capital into Bitcoin. Like, I think ETH probably has a little more opportunity from a percentage gain standpoint than Bitcoin does right now. I think some of these memes that we've been talking about for the last few months might have a little bit of a possibility. Or I think you could just continue to be patient and wait for a pullback, because I do think a pullback is happening here by end of year.
Absolutely. It's really hard because you see everything going up and you want to get in on it, but you might be late. Do you know what I mean? It's a timing thing. It really is.
FOMO is a hell of a drug. Like, seeing people posting their P&Ls of what they've made on their 100x longs. It makes you want to rush in and try to get a piece of that pie. But the piece of the pie you're going to get is a lot smaller than what they got, and it could be full of shit. It could be a
Yeah.
shit pie. Don't eat shit pie right now.
Classic 2011 reference to the movie The Help.
There you go.
Yeah, I knew it was coming from somewhere. But looking at XRP here, this is the thing I have a problem with alt, and this is why before the show I said that we might get an alt rally, but it's probably not going to be the things that we think. I could be wrong, right? Their fraud is also a hell of a drug, and you could see tons of tether just printed, and everything just starts going up because it's like, throw a little bit here, throw a little bit here, fuck TA. It's very possible that technical analysis we could throw right out the window, but this is a bear flag right here. You found resistance once again. You're gonna have to see how this trades. You need a fast breakout and back test support on top of this channel for us to expect it to continue to push up. Do I think XRP could go higher? Yeah, it probably could. At the same time, I'm cautious because I'm seeing this here. I'm also seeing it over here on ETH. And let's go to Cardano, see what's going on over there. There's a lot of just kind of flat trading or parallel trading. AVAX, flag here broke down from it. It's retesting the bottom of it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's go here. Something like that. It's trading within there. It's going to test it. It's a 200 EMA on the daily. Binance coin, we don't talk about that one anymore. Solana could push up a little bit higher. But there's a lot of these things that are just kind of flat. And when we're talking about alt season, none of them really showing legs. The stochastics are pretty overbought on the daily and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at total 3, is this not, maybe it has a little bit more room. Maybe that's our alt season, right? Goes to 106 trillion. Maybe it doesn't. It's overbought on the daily. Maybe you're expecting a pullback. Maybe it just pushes up just a little bit more into August, and then that's the top of the alt rally. But I do think when we look at something like Fartcoin over here,
There we go. Now we're talking.
You and I have been talking about this. This thing is technically sound in terms of everything we said. I think it was somewhere back here around the tariffs. I said, oh, yeah, if it pushes up from here and it kind of forms another cup or the handle of this cup, then we're probably going to see it push up pretty high. We also found that there was an inverted head and shoulders, and it's kind of broke out of that. It's above it still. So we're just waiting for that next push to the upside. Where does it go from here? It's got to break 165. I'm going to put some lines here, which I hate doing because it fucks up the chart, makes it ugly. But right here, you want to see that get broken, find support on that. Then obviously your next level would be somewhere in the 275 or so range. Break that, go above it, hold support, then you're in price discovery mode, right? All-time highs. I do think that we're probably going to test this 165 at some point. I don't know when. Maybe it's through all this crypto week mania. It's very possible. I also think that it's more likely once Bitcoin starts to pull back and maybe you see some rotation of capital. I think it's going to be stupid stuff like this. And by stupid, I mean it's not going to be the traditional cryptos that we're talking about. It's going to be more of the memes that take off, and that's going to kind of get everyone really excited. And maybe you start getting stuff listed on Robinhood, on Coinbase that's out there that you're seeing people get 1,000 X's on. And if that's the case, low market caps, then it's no different than what we're seeing in TradFi. When we get a chance, I'm going to show one last thing because GameStop and then one of the other stocks that we talk about on an absolute tear, up 16% today. But looking at this here, I think Fartcoin might be the best looking alt out of everything that I've seen, everything we've covered on the show. And that's not just because I have a bag. I bought a bag because these guys were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, this looks sound to me.
What's crazy? I'm looking on Coinbase right now. Just guess without looking. Guess what the 24-hour volume is of Fartcoin on Coinbase.
Like north of 300 million.
350.
Yeah, I knew that. I saw that earlier.
And that's another, it just blows my mind that Robinhood hasn't listed Fartcoin yet. Coinbase is Fartcoin is gonna have a noticeable improvement on Coinbase's bottom line with fees, for this quarter. It just is. And so it's just crazy to me that we're still waiting for Robinhood to list it if they ever will. And they're just missing out on all this, Fartcoin mania. But Anything else you want to look at GME, and then we can call it a day.
Yep. GME, you're about to get the death cross on the daily. However, this thing's about to end. You got Tuesday, July 22nd. This thing has to make a decision. Is it trading above it or is it trading below it? Doesn't mean that it has to break out instantly. Just means that it has to find support on these ugly lines that I've drawn. But this is kind of lining up with what's going on in Asia. We know that Japan, the yen carry trade unwinding means that there is a huge, huge disadvantage for hedge funds and people who are short this stock. Have been short this stock for how many years now? 5, probably even more, with naked short sales. If this thing starts to push up, they are absolutely fucked. And the thing is, GameStop has the cash on hand that MicroStrategy doesn't have to keep its stock elevated. They could announce buybacks, and if they do, they could get the price up higher than where a lot of these hedge funds want it, and they have to start covering their positions. Otherwise, it's going to go higher. The thing is, they're going to have to cover before other people cover, because guess what? If they don't, they're going to be buying back stock at a lot higher of a price, and it's just going to be an absolute mess. The yen carry trade, along with what happens in Switzerland, which I think would be the first of the European countries to kind of eat shit. Where you said it, Greece and Iceland, it's just going to be Japan and Switzerland, most likely, in my opinion. And if that's the case, this thing's going a lot higher. And this is something that's been trading within this wedge for roughly, over a year now. So looking at the daily, if we look at the weekly is honestly very close to being primed. You see that it's rolling over here, and you can see that it's pretty much at the height of the MACD on the downturn. You start to see this roll over, you're probably going to see the weekly roll over. Don't get me wrong. When this thing does go up, I think it's going to be wicks like this, right? It'll be like 1 or 2 weeks that you have elevated price action. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't go to certain levels. Maybe it pushes up higher after that. It depends on how long the squeeze is. We look at the squeeze back here in January 2021. You have these massive candles up, massive down, massive up. In other words, volatility is coming back, and it's going to be extremely exciting for, I think, GameStop. And we're already getting rumblings of that with FFAI. I talked about the stock so much. I have a bag of it. And the reason why I talk about it is because whenever GameStop goes up, so does this one. GameStop's not necessarily going up yet, but this one's kind of been front running lately. And looking at it today, last week for one day, it shot all the way up to 219. Today it's at 204. We were buying somewhere around like 105 or so. So, that's a 2x right there, right? And if it breaks this parallel line here, again, it sounds so stupid saying the parallel, but if it breaks that, it's going to go parabolic. Right. That's just kind of how we've seen some of these other things play out. We look at IPA. It's another one we talked about. It's at $2. We were talking about it when it was about 95 cents. It's probably going to find some resistance on the 200, but you're seeing a lot of these low market cap things squeeze. That's why I believe in Farcoin. I believe in GameStop. I also believe in FFAI. There's just a lot of money out there that they're going to start rotating into. The top 7 stocks, sure, they can keep pushing up. NVIDIA adding $4 trillion market cap. Amazon having terrible prime deal days, down 41% in the first day or so, but then the stock's still somewhat elevated. It hints at some type of major liquidity crisis that when it does happen, it's probably going to be a massive sell-off. You're seeing insider selling off, but you're not seeing insider selling off for a lot of these smaller ones. GameStop, for sure, you're not seeing any insider selling off, right? So we're in a very fun place. I'm excited. Nothing's happening right now, but you can kind of hear the rumblings. I honestly think that we're going to have a very exciting fall, both in the market and also in like the next few months, like autumn, because there's going to be so much volatility and just so many things happening. And it's going to be like, money is going to be made and lost, and it's going to be a generational wealth transfer.
All right. Well,
too, but whatever.
We're going to do our best to stay on the right side of that transfer. That's going to do it for today's show. Appreciate those of you who joined us. If you have not yet, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. We'll be back on Wednesday, talk through CPI data, PPI data, the latest from Crypto Week, and much more. So have a great week, everybody. Stay safe in the markets, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.